Way, way, way back in the distant, long-forgotten year of 2003, 20th Century Fox and Marvel lathered up a young, prime of his popularity Ben Affleck with 3 tubs of I can't believe it's not butter, and wedged him into the tightest fire truck red leather suit you've ever seen. They then filmed and released a movie called Daredevil that everyone says is bad, but I have a feeling it's about to have its amazing Spider-Man moment. And that movie really isn't important to the subject matter of today's topic, but at the same time it's very important as to why it never saw the light of day. Until now. And that topic is Daredevil, the Man Without Fear. Originally known as Daredevil the video game until its last year of development, Daredevil the Man Without Fear is a beat-em-up game developed by 5,000 I don't know if it's feet or foot. I can't find it not abbreviated anywhere because they don't exist anymore. So it's foot. The game was developed for the PlayStation 2 and is based off of the Daredevil comic book Elektra Lives. Like I said, this game has nothing to do with the 2003 Ben Affleck movie. 5,000 was trying to move out of the support role and develop their own games, while publisher Encore Inc. had just recently bought a few licenses for Marvel properties. The game was originally planned to be a small, low-budget game celebrating Daredevil's biggest moments. But when 5000's president was informed that 20th Century Fox was releasing a movie in February of 2003, the game was given a much bigger budget, causing them to swap out the celebration of Daredevil plans for a large-scale open-world adventure to launch alongside the movie. From there, Sony and Marvel had multiple disputes about the game, with Sony requesting crazy things like a Tony Hawk-style grind mechanic to the game. And as launch got closer, the game started to get pared down to a linear chapter-based story, and Daredevil eventually got delayed past the release of the movie till sometime in 2004, when Marvel pulled the plug and it was never to be seen again. That is, until November of 2020, when a video of the game surfaced on YouTube. And just a few years later, on Halloween of 2023, a playable version of the Daredevil prototype seen in that video was uploaded to Hidden Palace for public consumption. Now just bear with me for a second. So let's say allegedly someone involved in the making of this video may have allegedly put in the work to get this prototype running on the actual PlayStation 2, allegedly, to get the full experience of what this game would have been like if it had actually released. Allegedly. Do I look like a lawyer? I don't understand the legality of playing an unreleased prototype of a game that got canceled 20 years ago. So allegedly that happened, and then it was placed in front of me to use for this video that I'm making for educational purposes. Turns out you can just say pretty much whatever you want if you say it was for educational purposes. So the Daredevil story is slightly confusing because 40% of it just doesn't exist. At least not publicly anywhere. The game was never finished, and this build is from as late in development as it possibly could be, and only 6 of the levels are working in this build, those being chapters 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 8, so levels 2, 7, 9, and 10 all immediately crash the game after the chapter description screen. This leaves us with 6 out of 10 chapters of the story, mostly out of the middle of the game. But those, paired with the chapter descriptions, we can mostly piece together what the story would have been. The story opens up with a cutscene of various newspaper headlines, with Daredevil voiceover saying that his best friend and law partner Foggy Nelson is missing, and old Double D thinks he's been kidnapped by the Kingpin. So he goes to a restaurant where Kingpin frequents, where he smells Elektra. Then the restaurant blows up with Kingpin inside, so Daredevil sets off to find Elektra. And then that is followed by a solid minute and a half more of newspaper clippings in complete silence. My assumption is that they planned to end the cutscene with Daredevil saying he was going to ignore all that and then just do a regular patrol in only a 2-block radius, because that's what the first level is. The patrol acts as a tutorial level, where Master Stick directs Daredevil to follow around Stone the White Ninja and fight some bad guys while listening to "Get away from me!" on loop. Seriously, it's constant in this level. Like, never stops. Get away from me! Get away from me! Get away from me! The first thing I noticed was, "Get away from me!" But after that, it was Daredevil's toddler run. He runs like he has a diaper full of pennies. But that is not nearly as funny as the way he crouch walks. Someone animated that and thought, that'll do. Then I followed Stone to fight these guys on a rooftop where I got obliterated because I didn't know locking on was an option. Once I learned how to play, the combat was surprisingly competent for a pre-Arkham beat-em-up. The whole game has a familiar feel to the Never Saw Spider-Man games. The build was marked March 2004, so we're nearly 3 months out from... But those Never Saw Spider-Man still hold up pretty well, even against today's modern Spider-Man games being these gorgeous, high-speed, free-flowing masterpieces. For the combat, you punch with square, kick with circle, and triangle throws his... baton? Staff? Cane? What is that thing called? It's a stick that becomes 2 sticks, and it has a rope in the middle, but it's also a grappling hook.
Billy Club.
Billy Club? That can't be right. That doesn't even look like a Billy Club at all. You also push one of the arrows to go into first person mode where you can kick and throw the Billy Club, and that's it. Couldn't even punch in first person, which is kind of a weird design choice. But that's okay because I hardly threw any punches the whole time, because both the kicks and the Billy Club throw stun locks pretty much every enemy. So as long as you're in a one-on-one fight, you can lock them over and over again till they're down. Jumping attacks also work well for stun locks because they have a high damage output, but the lock-on system is horse's ass, so I try not to use it that much. But it really doesn't matter because the AI is dumb as bricks. Sometimes they demolish you, and other times they're getting stuck on a rail or walking off high ledges and falling to their deaths because you just happen to be below where they are. So they clearly didn't get to that part of development yet. But also, if there's more than one of them, like, you're screwed, just run away. The Billy Club also has a grappling hook. It doesn't really have a free aim system. You just point him in the direction and tap L2, and if something is in range, he'll hook it and he'll climb up. Or he'll hook it and then not grab the ledge and fall to his death. There's no real rhyme or reason as to why he just falls sometimes and not fall other times. Just like how in this game, walls are sometimes walls, and sometimes they're not walls. Yeah, sometimes they're like reverse Wile E. Coyote paintings. But if you are trying to grapple up to a tall building that you can't see the top of, you can double tap L2, and he might grapple up to it, if you do it repeatedly while fidgeting around. While following Stone around this level, you'll pick up a couple more useful skills, like the use of Daredevil's echolocation radar sense, that you can tap into anytime by clicking in the right stick. The radar sense is exactly like Batman Arkham Detective Vision, but 5 years earlier and borderline impossible to see anything. You basically only use this to find enemies because it's so blurry and blown out. You can't really make out shapes. The only reason you can find enemies is because each one emits this gigantic pillar of light that makes it even harder to see anything around that general area. So while Daredevil implemented this mechanic 5 years before it was popular, it's pretty much useless the way it was done, and I hardly used it. Except for when it randomly looked really good for no reason at all in the sewer level. The last thing you learn in this level is how to do the Tony Hawk grind. Yeah, they actually added that to the game, and it sounds pretty stupid, but honestly, in practice, it feels pretty Daredevil-y. So I ended up playing this tutorial level about 4 times before I could get it to actually save the game. The whole playing on the real hardware idea kind of came back to haunt me here. But in those 4 playthroughs, I had some time to explore the 2-block radius of the tutorial level, and found that 3 feet from the start was a side quest. It's actually the only side quest in the whole game, and it is to save this lady from getting mugged. And it turns out she's the one yelling, "Get away from me!" Guess I didn't have to listen to that for 20 minutes straight. Awesome. That's just wonderful. But I also found through fighting street thugs, scaling buildings, swinging on light poles, doing flips, and grinding on rails, this game feels exactly what I would think a Daredevil game should feel like. A janky Daredevil game from 2004. But still, the idea is there. You can see what it would have been like with polish. And also in 2004. But eventually I did finish the tutorial and got it to save so I could access the 5 other working levels. I also got to look at the level end screen that tallies up your points and gives you a ranking for the level. I don't know what all the rank options are because I got the same one every time. I went from thug to superhero. I don't know if there's anything in between, but the rankings exist, I guess. So do the classic early 2000s comic book game collectible of comic book covers. I mean, you can collect them, but it doesn't look like any of the covers were actually added to the game, because when you go to the gallery, they just show up as white rectangles. Level 2 doesn't work, but we do have a title card telling us that Daredevil goes looking for Elektra, so at least this one follows the story from the cutscene at the beginning. In the third level, Daredevil has tracked down Elektra at an apartment complex, but so has Kingpin's men. And this is all explained to us in a beautifully cel-shaded graphic style, with Daredevil doing voiceover narration. The voice actor sounds like every Batman voice actor ever.
When I caught up with Elektra, she was her usual charming self. I'd like to think she wasn't trying to kill me, but you never know.
I have no idea who it is, but IMDb says it's this guy from Terminator. But there's zero information on anyone that worked in this game, and he died in January of 2023, so I can't ask him. We'll just have to let him have that, I guess. And also because the credits are entirely placeholder text and these scary moon pictures. I snuck around this level quite a bit, slowly picking off Kingpin's thugs, until I realized that this level is basically just an arena. So you just beat the hell out of everybody till Elektra shows up, and then you do the same to her till she falls down and you get a cutscene again. So there isn't much to this level, except for these health pickups that weren't in the tutorial level at all. These make Daredevil regain health slowly, and it also raises whatever this bar under the health is called all the way to the top. There isn't like an actual name for this bar that I can find anywhere, so I'm just going to call it the lots of legs and arms mode bar, because that's pretty much all it does, is give you like 9 arms and legs when he moves. I think this is to make him look like he's going fast, but it just really confused me the first time I used one because I didn't even notice I had picked one up, and then I saw this. I assumed that was just another unfinished part of the game. The wild thing about these pickups is that bosses can use them too. It took me forever to beat Elektra because she kept running off and I would just fight the surrounding thugs till she came back with full health. And after doing that about 5 times, I found out she was over here picking them up. But after that, I just stayed on her with the Billy Club and took her out after an unreasonably long boss fight. After she is defeated, you get another cutscene where she tells you that she was sent to that restaurant by an anonymous source, and she doesn't know anything about the disappearance of Foggy Nelson. Level 4 has no cutscene, but it's called Gang War, and that is pretty much what it is. And this is also the level where I realized this game is hard as nails. First, they spawn you on the top of a building, and you take fall damage pretty easily, so you can't just jump to the ground. The only safe way to get down is to precision jump to a wire, grind down to a ledge that if you miss you get flat Stanley'd by a train, then jump down and use the grappling hook at just the right moment to land without getting hurt, but you're definitely going to take some fall damage here anyways. Or you just jump off and hope you can grapple hook something and not die. And then the ground is littered with a million guys with guns that you have to take out while also stopping other gang members from planting bombs and destroying the city. And with all that, the dodge sucks, and the block sucks, and the camera is archaic, and sucks, so your only choice is to do the sonic jump and dash attack over and over again, and then you get stuck in a bus stop, and you can't see where you're going, and then you get shot, and you die, and you give up, and you quit so you can just skip on to the next level, but not before realizing that Daredevil is really trying to seduce you in the pause menu screen. And it's kind of working. So the next level you play in the sewer because Daredevil smells foggy down here, but I don't think what you're smelling is foggy. That's my one low-hanging fruit joke for the video, I'm sorry, but where it was bad, just let me have that one please. So you fight members of the Hand in the sewer, activate a bunch of doors, and get blown up a lot until the next level, where you fight Daredevil villain nobody has ever heard of, ever, the King of the Sewers. And don't pretend like you know who the King of the Sewers is. I know you're out there typing a comment right now, I get it, he was in the GBA game. Whatever, nobody knows who that guy is. And when the King of the Sewer is defeated, Daredevil finds a playing card left by Bullseye, which leads us to our last playable level, after we skip level 7, because it doesn't work either. But level 8 takes us to what I think is supposed to be a boxing ring, but it looks like a Hell in a Cell WWE ring. And you have to race down the arena from the ceiling to save Elektra because she's in the cage with Bullseye, and he is down there absolutely rocking her. So you race your way down there doing a bunch of board slides and a couple McTwists like you're the newest member of the Bones Brigade, or just jump off the edge. Either way, you're definitely going to take some fall damage, and you wrap up the last playable level of this build of the game that almost feels like a proper ending, gameplay-wise at least. Because you get to actually fight Bullseye, a pretty iconic villain in Daredevil's Rogues Gallery. Now, the full game would have went from here to having Daredevil find Foggy, and later finding out that the Kingpin is still alive, and he faked his whole death as a prank. It was actually to start a massive gang war, but prank sounds funnier. Then, Daredevil fights the Kingpin, the end. Which I actually have a few brief clips to show you what that fight would have looked like, because they put it in the soundless demo intro cinematic, completely spoiling the whole twist of the game. And that is what we have so far of Daredevil, the Man Without Fear. Probably all we'll ever have. It took 19 years for this much of the game to leak onto the internet, so I doubt we will ever see the rest of it. Unless somebody continues to mess around with the code and finds a way to make the rest of the levels playable. Until then, all I have to say is, the Daredevil game is actually pretty fun. I mean, you can definitely see that it wasn't finished when playing it. There is absolutely zero polish to the game because they never got that far. But the general gameplay isn't bad. It feels like any other game from that time. Like I said earlier, it's very similar to the Neversoft Spider-Mans, or even the Spider-Man movie game. There it is. But I don't think Marvel should have pulled the plug on it. It may not connect to the movie at all, but I think it would have at least got a sales boost from the movie, or vice versa. As just okay as that movie was, it did make some money, and it could have made more with this. But at least with this build leaked, those Daredevil fans that have been getting their gaming fix from one GBA game and the occasional Ultimate Alliance release finally have something to play that feels like The Blind Devil. As long as they have a way to emulate the PS2 and download the build, and don't mind the buggy enemy AI and only having half of a game and countless crashes. But if you don't feel like doing any of that, I've done a few videos like this on unreleased superhero content. You can go watch right now. And while you're doing that, subscribe so you can see when I do it again. Or any other thing I do around here. And if you really love Off the Panel specifically and want to show the world how much you love it, you can get yourself a t-shirt and a beanie over at blaster-goblin-shop.fourthwall.com or at the link in the description. And go watch the Daredevil movie, I guess. I promise it's going to come around.